We're your co-host Tina,
And I'm Jamie.
and welcome back
Hello.
to an episode of the Women in Tech Tea Podcast. In this episode, we have a wonderful guest speaker here with us, Karishma, who is currently a director of software engineering at WiT. Before we begin, though, a small disclaimer is that all opinions presented by Karishma today will be her own. So without further ado, Karishma, would you like to maybe briefly introduce yourself and how you got inspired to get into tech and some of the work you're currently working on?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Karishma Biswas, and it's great to be here today. A little bit about me. I've been in the software industry for over 17 years now, and a large part of that has actually been with the payments industry. So I guess as a child, I was always curious about the world around me and how things work. Like I would fidget around and try to see, okay, how does this thing work, or how does the telephone work, or how do the simple gadgets around me work. And as was like the age that saw the rise of telephony, of mobiles and the internet. So I was super fascinated by the possibilities that technology brings. And it was a snowball effect kind of a thing. The more I discovered, the more I wanted to know. And I realized slowly that technology wasn't just a tool, but it was a platform for creation, innovation, and problem solving. And I love problem solving. So I think in terms of my career journey, I began in India as a software developer. From there, transitioning to incident and problem management, and then from there back again to software engineering. I moved to Singapore in 2015 as part of a transition to a leadership role, and here I am now today.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Wow, 2015. That's some time ago.
SG50.
Oh, wow. SG50, yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned, so now that you are working as a director and now you're a woman in leadership, how has your experience been and how has there maybe been some personal growth and development through your career?
Right. So I think the very fact that the tech industry is something that changes very rapidly. So it's essential to stay up to date with the latest trends and technologies that are around us. Every day we learn something new, every day we come across something new. So unless we continue to grow and evolve and develop on a regular basis, we will eventually become outdated, we will eventually become irrelevant. And I think the fantastic thing about technology today is that it's very easy to tap into the power of all of the learning resources out there, and you can self-learn, you can self-scale, you can self-grow. Earlier, I think it was more dependent on someone had to teach you how to do something. Now it's all out there and you can just go ahead and tap into whatever you really want to learn and want to know more about. But I think if I have to specifically talk about the leadership part of it, so beyond technical skills, there is a very specific set of soft skills that also comes into play. So you have to learn a lot about communication, about teamwork, and leadership. These also become more and more important as you move into more managerial or more leadership kind of roles. So for me, the shift from the technical hands-on kind of work to a managerial role was quite interesting because as a technology person, I enjoyed the satisfaction of, solving complex problems, doing debugging or writing code and going, hooray, my code works. And, just trying to come up with more and more solutions to whatever were the problems or the challenges that came in front of me. But when you become a manager or when you become a people leader, you realize that the role slowly starts becoming less about your own work, what it is that you do in a hands-on capacity. And it becomes more of an enabler kind of a role where you have to start uplifting your teams and your colleagues in order so that they can start doing their best work. So this shift from technical problem solving, so to say, to people management, more planning, more decision making, that has been a fantastic growth opportunity for me.
Very cool. So you mentioned that there was a shift from technical to managerial, and you mentioned that you started your journey in India. How was it? Is there any difference from working there compared to Singapore?
I think there is a bit of a difference, and I think there are always various location-specific factors that come into play. And I've been lucky enough to actually work in a lot of geographies. So I've worked in India, I've worked in the United States, I've worked in the UK, and then I'm now working in Singapore. So in each place, I've got to experience a nice blend of what we call the typical office culture or the corporate culture. And there's so much that you can learn from each and every aspect out of it. So it is definitely different, but it's also interesting to learn the little quirks about what works and what doesn't work. It's also part of your own growth journey.
Just going off the technical and managerial roles that you've handled before, which side do you lean more towards that you enjoy doing more?
Um, I think at heart, I'm still a technologist. So if you put like a problem in front of me, I will, itch until I find a solution to it. You know that thing when you can't remember a song or you have a problem in front of me and you're like, I can't sleep until I get this done. So that is still there. But I think it now big shifts into the fact that you don't want to have to provide a solution directly, even if you know how to solve it. You have to hold yourself back and not give the solution directly. You have to let the people around you find that solution themselves. So it's more about, being more patient, being more calm, being more collected, and helping others learn how to get there rather than just jumping the gun and, dragging everyone along with you.
See, that's quite a big shift there in the kind of role you have to play.
Yeah.
So delving more into topics about women in tech and the kind of encounters we face as women in tech. So throughout your career journey, did you ever personally encounter any stereotypes about women in tech or women in leadership? Like, how did you go about addressing it and breaking down these potential barriers, if there were any?
Right. So I think if we look about it, I mean, not just from a Singapore perspective or not just from a tech perspective, but in general, there are still plenty of fields all around the world where women are still underrepresented. And technology and tech leadership is a large part of it. So you will have certain stereotypes about how the perception of a woman in a leadership role or how women in technology should, come across as. If you go back and refer any of the movies, you will always see a techie girl, being represented in a certain way. So the stereotypes do exist, but I think that's the whole point of it, that they're just stereotypes. They are a part of the entire set, as to say. It does not represent each and every one of it. Similarly, like if you have certain stereotypes around culture, I think it's the same thing to do even with gender. Some people have a perception about how a certain person or a certain role should look like. And what we've discovered is that unconscious bias is a large part of it, where people are often unaware of the impact of their actions or words. They have no idea that what they are saying could be divisive, or it could come across as demeaning or even demotivating to some people. So it's really, really important to start creating a dialogue around these issues so that we can have more awareness and that we can promote more change. For myself, I think I made a point of speaking up, both for myself and also for the women around me who I felt were experiencing similar issues. That kind of led to the fact that I worked actively in the Women in Technology chapter in my organization. And we realized that a large part of this is about leading by example. So we often become lost in where we want to go because we don't see enough role models in front of us. So we have to end up becoming the change that we want to see for our future selves. Another aspect, again, if I put the flip on the leadership side, it's about also an responsibility on me that I have to foster an inclusive and supportive work environment for my team and my colleagues. As a leader, I have a responsibility to make sure that everyone in my team feels valued and respected, regardless of their gender or their background. So if I see that there are some quiet ones who don't usually speak up or who don't feel confident because they feel it could be a variety of reasons, then it's up to me to try and get them to open up, to contribute a little bit more in a way that they are feeling comfortable. So while we still have a long way to go in terms of achieving like true equality in tech and leadership, I'm super optimistic about the future. I think more and more women are making their mark in these fields, and I'm proud to be a part of that change.
Very cool. Yeah. You are part of the change, being a leader in technology. And you mentioned that you're also part of the Women in Tech chapter. I was wondering, are there any projects or initiatives that you've seen in companies that sort of promote that sort of inclusive culture?
So I think what happens is when we talk about DNI or diversity and inclusion for an organization, I think the most important thing is to have very strong top-down leadership support for any of these initiatives or programs that we want to run. There has to be a very clear messaging about the importance of these values, why we have certain policies and practices that reflect a particular commitment to DNI. Otherwise, the whole message tends to get diluted in translation, and then people just start working towards, meeting certain targets or certain numbers that, okay, you need to have like one woman on the board, or you should have like two women in every meeting. So that's not what we really want to achieve, right? So I think the support that really comes from leadership is an essential part of it. Understanding why we do what we do is a big part of it. Bringing in allyship, that's important as well, because we can't just bring about change with, just the 50% population that is women. We also need the men to do their part, right? So I think those are a few important aspects. And if I look at it from specific to the tech industry again, some of these things that we could start looking at is how we bring women into the tech force in the first place, right? We look at women who are hesitant to apply for certain jobs because they feel that, okay, maybe I'm not cut out for it. Maybe I don't match these particular skill sets. Or there could be certain languages in job roles which are maybe not targeted or not very inclusive in terms of whether they are, trying to target men or trying to target women. So certain things that we could do is try to have more inclusive language in job descriptions. We could have more diversity in interview panels. Often you see that, okay, when you see a particular woman on an interview panel, you automatically tend to become more comfortable and more confident because you see something like a role model out there that, okay, we have someone like this, so I can be there too. So I think these are some very simple things that can make a big change.
Very cool. Yeah, I think the aspect about having a woman on the board in terms of numbers is not really I guess not very intuitive in terms of having true inclusivity and diversity.
Yep.
Moving into perhaps the other aspect of just being another person in technology, do you have any personal like professional goals or goals for your career at that moment?
I think it depends on how we really look at ourselves or we look at our particular career journey. So there was a leader in my organization who I really look up to, who said a wonderful line about career growth and in general personal growth, that your career journey is a marathon, it's not a race. So there will be certain aspects where you slow down, where you pace yourself, and then there will be certain aspects where you go ahead and you really sprint towards a certain goal. So having that tenacity, having that patience to really work for it, and also having a good understanding of your own self-worth, that if you feel that you're continuously getting not able to make the cut for a certain promotion or for a certain role, even though you feel you're fully qualified for it, then maybe it's time to really look at what's not working. So having a good understanding of your own abilities, your own capabilities, what you can and cannot achieve, and also understanding that it's not always going to be a very accelerated kind of a growth. There will be some times where you need to pause, you need to upskill, you need to reflect, and then you need to move in whatever direction makes sense. So yeah.
Definitely.
Since you mentioned like your career journey is not a sprint, it's a marathon. I'd like to, and like in a marathon, the ultimate goal is to like complete the 42K, for example. So in your opinion, what is the meaning of a successful career to you using this metaphor?
So I guess to me, a successful career is not just about achieving the final victory or achieving a particular professional goal or reaching a certain point on the corporate ladder. It's also about having your own personal growth along the way, having made a positive impact to the people you interact with and you work with on a day-to-day basis, and finding fulfillment in what you do. It's a bit how do I say it? It's a bit extreme maybe to see that you should always love every aspect of your job. I think over time you understand that that's not always possible. There will be days you'll be like, I don't want to work today, right? Which is very normal and very real. That happens to I think all of us. But at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, if that does not bring you some amount of fulfillment, some amount of satisfaction, then again it's not the right fit. So success could mean different things to different people, but I guess for me it's about maintaining a healthy balance between personal satisfaction in terms of where I am and where I want to be, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line, and also professional achievement. So it's about striking that balance.
Do you have any advice on how to achieve that work-life balance?
I think it works differently for different people because everyone has a different speed or a different rate at which they really work. And sometimes it's related to where you are in your career journey. Sometimes it's simply related to where you are in your life, right? In terms of your milestones when it comes to your own personal journey, when it comes to your professional journey. So it would be different for different people. Everyone will have, their milestones at different parts. For some people, it could be like, in 3 years, I want to achieve this. For some people, it could be, okay, eventually, at the end of 5 years, I want to see myself here. And that could include some personal milestones as well as some professional milestones. So finding that exact work-life balance, it's challenging, where your responsibilities keep growing. You not just on the personal front, but even on the professional front. You start becoming more involved in more projects. You start becoming more responsible as an adult. So a large part of it slowly starts to become that, okay, how well do you delegate certain aspects of your life where you are not required to be present 100% of the time? And then you can kind of free up your time and your energy for the things that you really want to do. So it's, I think there's this very famous meme that's going around nowadays that, I don't want AI to do like the parts of my job that I love. I want it to do the laundry and the dishes. So it's an aspect of that, right? You want to save your time, your energy, your enjoyment for the things that you love to do. You don't want to outsource that.
Very true. With the mention of AI and all these developments, and also with your mention of your passion for innovation culture, how do you think this sort of ties into what innovation means to you, or how does it play a role in technology?
So I think going back to what I said in my introduction itself, I've always been curious. In fact, even when I talk to my team members or when I'm trying to look at adding, people into my team, I always look for something that I call the curious quotient. How curious they are, how do they look at certain problems, certain solutions. And sometimes it's just the nature of the problem that, okay, you look at something and you see the happy path or the easiest way forward. How many people really think of the possible things that could go wrong, or how do you really mitigate for it, or how you really try to solve for it? So to me, innovation is about pushing boundaries and thinking outside of the box so that you can find new and better ways to solve either existing problems, or you could come up with something new and groundbreaking completely. One thing that I typically say to my team is, for a starting point, if you're thinking, where do I begin my innovation journey? I ask them to look at what aspect of your day-to-day work do you like the least? What is your biggest pain point? And how do you think you would want to get rid of it? You may not be the person to get rid of it, but what ideas, what solutions do you have that, okay, maybe this can be done in a better way? Because the parts or the things that pinch us the most, we either just vent about it or we rant about it. Oh, I wish it was done this way. I wish it was done that way. Some of it may be just wishful thinking, but sometimes some great ideas can also come out of there. So thinking about your pain points, thinking about what are certain things that you see wrong with existing processes, or just, trying to streamline it better. I think that's a great starting point. And if you think about technology in particular, I think this is where innovation plays really crucial role, because it's a very rapidly evolving landscape. And if you're not innovative, if you're not up there with the top players, then you're slowly falling behind in the competitive game. So it's not just about creating new technologies, but also about trying to find out how you can leverage what you have in new and more creative ways, so that you can tap into more users, you can tap into more markets, you can tap into more domains overall. So for technology and for innovation to come together, that particular blend is going to really transform the way we do our day-to-day work. It could be the tasks that we do on a regular basis. It could be certain things in our work life. So all of these advancements that we see nowadays with AI and machine learning, the different ways in which we do communication tools, even the various platforms that have developed where we do online shopping, or how we do certain parts of our day-to-day planning, all of this innovation is going to really drive the industry forward. And I'm excited to be part of a field like technology, which is where, it's at the forefront of everything that's happening. So all the cool stuff is happening here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Since Karishma, you're a very strong advocate for diversity and inclusion in tech, we would like to know some of your insights on what the current landscape is for diversity and inclusion in tech and AI industries, for example. What is something we can expect while we join a new company? And why is it important to have such an inclusive environment as well?
So I think if we look about it, like I mentioned, we've seen great improvement over the years in terms of where D&I has taken us. We started from a certain point of time where we had certain roles, certain industries where women could not work at all. And I think we've come far away from that. We've come to more and more examples of equal parenting or co-parenting when it comes to it. We see a shift from the traditional roles that women used to play in the home as caregivers, or being like, the primary caregiver for children or even for elderly parents. So we've seen a large shift in this over the years. And dialogue has been a large part of it, because the more we talk about it, the more awareness we bring about these kind of things. I think it just helps. But there's still a lot of work to be done, because of the fact that now that we have women as an integral part of the workforce, we also have to try and make sure that they aren't really, pulling double shifts. They aren't giving 100% at work and then also being expected to do the whole stay-at-home routine as well. So striking that balance is going to be the next challenge that I see. And we have to come up with a good mechanism for it. Could be flex working, it could be work-life balance initiatives. And we have to try and find a way, at least for gender, so that we can have more of an equitable mix when it comes to leadership, because that's where a lot of your decision making, a lot of your policy making gets done. Another aspect to think about is that we often think of D&I only in terms of gender, but it's not just about, just the men and women part of it. It's not just gender part of it. You have different races, you have different ethnicities, different backgrounds, abilities. Someone could come from a comp science background, someone could come from a chemical engineering background, and each of them have their unique perspectives as to what they bring into the workplace. It's really interesting to see how tech is like a great leveler sometimes for these kind of things, even AI in particular, because we try and develop solutions over here that can be used by a diverse range of individuals. So when the team that is putting together a certain product or a certain solution, when they themselves are diverse, they tend to also start automatically thinking about more diverse users. Like, okay, what are the challenges that a left-handed person would face when they are trying to use a particular product out there? Or what are the challenges that would come across if, say, someone is colorblind? So these are the different kinds of perspectives that slowly start coming into the mix. And as a result, the kind of quality of the products that we start putting out there, they become better, they become more effective, more accessible, and also fairer to a larger population of people now. So I think that's the most important aspect of D&I that we need to look at. And at the end of the day, from a workplace perspective, creating that inclusive culture is also really, really important, because, okay, we will get maybe people in through the door with all of our great practices and our policies and everything. But how do we make sure that once they are there, once we have them working on a day-to-day basis, that they're not really facing challenges? So how do we have more education around unconscious bias? How do we have support for underrepresented groups? How do we make sure that everyone kind of finds their tribe or their community that they can feel valued, they can feel heard, they can feel respected with? So these are small things that I think will go, again, a long way in making sure that we are really raising the bar when it comes to D&I initiatives.
Yeah, on a more, I guess, just personally curious, because you mentioned that you started out as a very curious person already, and you've gone through a vast array of experiences in such a volatile industry. I myself, as a young person, I can't even envision where I'll be in like 5 to 10 years. I was wondering, do you envision yourself to be where you are now? And how do you get through all the difficult changes and things like that?
So I guess in some way it has been a planned, or at least I had some idea of how the journey would look like. Not exactly planned down to maybe the last detail, but I had some idea of what I wanted to do, or how I wanted to kind of like, move my journey forward. So I did have certain mental images or certain, mental milestones that I was working towards, that, okay, this is what I would like to achieve. This is how I would like to grow. But change is the only constant, right? So, and I think we saw a very, very large example of this coming across when we all went through the pandemic together. So everybody had plans for their lives, their careers, everything, and then everything got, put on hold, or it shifted completely because of the way that the pandemic changed our lives. We all kind of, had to flip and pivot and try and think about, okay, how do we now make these things happen with this new aspect or with this new element out of it? How do we make virtual meetings like this more easily accessible, more frequent, and more possible, and even more entertaining? It's not just about doing the bare minimum now anymore. It's also about making sure how you really add value to a lot of our experiences. So it's been an interesting journey. I still feel that there is a lot more that I want to do. I'm a bit, how do I put it? Not exactly ambitious. Ambitious sounds too strong a word, but I think I want to wake up in the mornings and have something that I look forward to. And then when I'm like all done, I have like a really, really, I like to read. Okay, so I'm like a huge reader. So at the end of it, when I'm like all done for the day, or when I'm finally achieved wherever I want to achieve, I'm going to go and work as a librarian. I just want to be like surrounded by books. That's my end goal. So yeah, I'm manifesting that one, by the way.
Maybe one day indeed. That
Yeah,
sounds really fun.
yeah.
In that case, before we wrap up, would you like to give maybe closing word or advice to the young people, like men and women pursuing tech careers out there, or who want to follow a similar path to yourself?
Absolutely. I think to all the people out there, I mean the young ones, the young at hearts, everybody who is aspiring to pursue a career in tech, I think my advice would be to stay curious and to never stop learning. The tech industry is so fast paced, it's constantly evolving, that the ability to learn and adapt and continuously upskill is key to personal growth as well as professional growth. So don't be afraid of challenges. Try to look at each challenge or each change as it comes your way as an opportunity for growth. Don't be afraid to really step outside of your comfort zone, because that's where the real journey starts. For the women especially, remember that diversity is our strength. Your unique perspective is valuable and it is needed in this industry. So don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. If you face stereotypes, if you face biases, just stand strong and let your work speak for yourself. And I think one final thing towards the end is find a balance between your work and your life. While it's important to be dedicated, to be hardworking, to put in the time, put in the hours, it's also important to take care of your mental and physical health. Because success is not just about achieving all of those professional goals, it's also about having personal happiness and fulfillment. So the journey may not always be easy, but it's definitely worth it. And it's a really exciting and a rewarding field to be part of it. And I look forward to seeing more and more people join it and do amazing things over there.
Thank you so much, Karishma, for your time and valuable insights. And that's about all the time we have for today. I hope you have fun talking with us also and sharing your valuable advice for everyone listening in. And I'm
Yes.
sure our listeners will glean many lessons. And with that, we'll see you in our next episode.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.